So this is the most recent thing that arrived. This is something I pre-ordered quite some time ago when it was announced, and it sold out very quickly through most of the retailers. This is Captain Sonar. It's a team game, and just for Dave, I'm going to open this single-handedly because I know how much that annoys him. Oh my god, is it more difficult than it looks? There we go. And this was what I was hoping to play at our games meetup, which got postponed. But given how complicated some of my friends at work found resistance, might have to give this some thought. Anyway, let's have a look inside. So in Captain Sonar you play a team of submarine operators, and you are in teams, two teams of 4, separated by these large screens. You have one person as a captain controlling the rest of his teammates, and everyone else has a specific job to do on the submarine, and you use these dry erase markers to indicate what you're doing on the board, and then it's a case of trying to track down the opponent's submarine. It comes with this huge set of 2 cardboard boards which you put up between the 2 teams, and that essentially acts a bit like Battleship, so that you can't see what the opponents are doing. And that's what this game becomes, this massive real-time game of Battleship. So these are the boards. I'll just walk through those very quick. Captain Sonar comes with a series of dry erase boards. So you have the captain's board, which contains a map of the area. You have different quadrants, and at the beginning of the game the captain will choose the starting point for their submarine, and they'll declare a direction they want to sail in. So they might say north, in which case they draw a line. It's like playing a gigantic game of Snake. They can't go over any of the islands, so they go around trying to keep their vessel moving and free from the attacks of the enemy player, all the while trying to work out where the enemy is to then fire weapons at them to sink their submarine. Meanwhile, every time the captain declares a direction to move in, the first mate has to choose a weapon system to charge up. So each time they move, one system gets charged. So if the captain says let's go north, they pick one of the systems and say, right, I'm going to charge the drones, which allow you to scout for the position of the other players once you get all the way around here. So to charge this system, you'd have to move 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Meanwhile, each time you move, the first mate tells the engineer that it's ready to activate one of the systems. Now, this engineer has got a bit of a comedy job, because rather than repairing and fixing things, every time the submarine moves, the engineer has to pick one of the systems to break. So, for example, I might say, right, well, if we're going north, I can choose any of these things, so I'm going to damage the nuclear reactor. And now that's done. However, when the engineer gets to the point that they've broken all of the same system type, so for example, if we went east, south, north, and so on, and broke all of those nuclear reactors, that means that you take some damage, and it's time to start thinking about repairing the submarine, which begins an incredibly insane minigame which involves drawing around the outside of the submarine without going outside the line. So if you do that, you have to start again. And every single person in the team has to take part in fixing the submarine. It's incredibly silly and zany, and it's one of those games where it looks very, very complicated, but once you start playing it kind of makes sense. The real heart of the game, though, is here. You have the radio operator, or the sonar operator. They've got a little overlay that goes on top of the map, and what they're doing is they're listening to the orders of the opponent's captain. So when they say, start and let's go east, they just pick a point and they draw a line. And they're trying to work out, by moving this thing around, where the opponent's submarine is likely to be. So for example, if the opponent said south twice, they know that they can't possibly be here because that would take them through an island, and that's simply not possible. So they might start moving the overlay around to work out whereabouts it's likely that the enemy submarine will be. And during the course of the game, with more information available, that becomes a little bit easier to fathom. On the other side of the board, you have the spaces for the opponent's team. Exactly the same setup, so you have multiple boards, exactly the same, just a mirror image of what's on the other side, and you have 2 teams in competing with one another in order to sink their submarines using the weapon systems, which the first mate is in control of. So you have torpedoes, and as you can see, a torpedo you can declare a zone to attack on the board where you think the opponent's submarine might be. As soon as a weapon system is fired, everyone puts their pens down, you pause the game, and then you declare the coordinates on the grid to attack. So let's say, for example, that we wanted to attack F4. Game pauses, everyone puts their pens down on both sides, and then a bit like Battleship, we ask the opponents if their submarine is in F4 or in their spaces around it. If it is, they take some damage, and now they've got the horrible task of trying to escape from this submarine. If it's not there, they simply declare a miss and the game continues as normal, and this is all played in real time. So the challenge is really for each individual player to learn the little nuances of their own individual systems and their own individual job. And it's one of those games where it takes a while to kind of get your head around it, sort of about 10-15 minutes, but it's incredibly quick to pick up and play, and it's incredibly silly. And that board, although you can't really see it here, is massive. It can extend all the way out along a huge table, so you can have 4 people on each team playing in real time, and what very, very quickly descends into anarchy and chaos. But the best bit of the game, in my opinion, is the silly fact that the very first thing you do is you name your submarine. So, and there's space for everyone to do that, which will no doubt lead to a huge number of Captain Pugwash and Seaman Staines jokes, along with delusions of grandeur with the captain. And the great thing about this, of course, all the boards are dry erase, which means that you can reuse the game multiple times, or if you really, really wish, you can start doodling all over the board when you start getting more and more drunk or more hopeless at your job. But that's bound to lead to lots of arguments and infighting amongst your team when they find that rather than tracking the opponent's submarine, you've been drawing the Castle South Park over the islands. And that is essentially Captain Sonar, a very, very silly team game which plays in about 45 minutes, sometimes less. If the stress of the real-time game gets too much, though, the really cool thing is on the flip side of each of these maps, you've also got a way of playing this turn by turn, which has a slightly different layout, slightly different configuration, but the actual principles are largely the same. It just plays at a slightly more leisurely pace without quite so much chaos. But personally, I think half of the fun of this game is having everyone screaming at each other and starting to panic when they think the other team are closing in. So that is the game I would like to play next, but I need to get at least 8 people together for this one. Can play with slightly fewer, but the problem is then you've got people operating more than one board at a time, which can get very, very difficult to get your head around. So there we go. Okay.